hello and welcome to the class. Thank you for attending today. I hope you can understand me. There are subtitles and captions available if you want on Facebook Live. The idea is for me to give free classes in the morning, especially with the restrictions and the pandemic. People are at home, so it's a very good opportunity for you to learn English for free. And for me, it's a very good opportunity to continue working and to return to working. So this is the idea for the free classes, and we started in January, and every day we have continued with a free class in the morning. So I hope they are helping you. I hope they are useful. And today we have some new people, I am sure, and also a lot of people prefer to watch on record. First, I hope we have no problem with the connection. We have the Wi-Fi, the laptop, Zoom, Facebook technology, so I hope there's no problem with technology. Hopefully everything is okay. Also, I am at home, so I'm in the garden a little, and we have 6 people at home working from home, so it's possible sometimes a little distraction, and maybe for me I'm distracted sometimes, but hopefully no problem, and hopefully everything is okay. We also have the dog in the garden, so possibly during the class you might hear the dog contributing. I think he just wants to say hello to everybody, so sometimes you hear him. We have social media, so Instagram, you can connect on Instagram. The name is @migliore_inglés, and every morning I put some pictures. You can see the Instagram account here, @migliore_inglés. There's 3 types of pictures. In the morning I have pictures of Dublin on the left. You can see all the pictures of Dublin. In the middle I have pictures with like quotation and some words, and on the right is some tips from the class and some clips from the class. So that's the same material on Twitter compared to Facebook and YouTube. I have a specific YouTube channel dedicated to the free classes. So every day I upload the class to YouTube, and some people prefer YouTube, so maybe this is good for you. At the moment I am using Zoom, so I'm on Zoom at the moment, and I'm also with Facebook Live. So if you want to participate, if you want to ask a question, if you want to watch the class on Zoom, the code is at the bottom. It's the meeting ID and the passcode, so you are welcome to connect with Zoom and to participate in the class and just to watch the class also. Some people prefer, and every morning in the event section I put the link directly for the Zoom meeting, and you can connect there every morning. Okay, so today the plan is very similar, so the structure is very similar from other days. First we will have an introduction document with the grammar. After the introduction we will do some listening today. So the listening from today is from the episode of Friends, the very famous episode of Friends, and we have the transcript as well. It's not too difficult. It's probably quite understandable, not too difficult, but it's good practice as well. Then we have an article in relation to a musician in England. So this is the article you can see. And after the listening, we will continue with the article. The boy's name is Lee Mavers. I don't know him, but it's a story about a singer, a famous singer in the past. Okay, so that's the plan after the listening. And then we have a list of phrasal verbs and a list of almost a weekend, so everybody's in different situations. Maybe you're working, maybe you're at home, maybe you've no work, and we've lots of people in different parts of the world. I know we've lots of people in England from different countries, in South America, in Bolivia, Peru, and we also have people in Asia, which is in the afternoon, in Indonesia, Vietnam and Thailand. So good morning everybody, and feel free to leave a comment on the Facebook page, the Facebook Live. You can make a comment and say hello. And we have people in Italy and Romania, Bulgaria, France, Germany and other places. So it's very, very good. And we have different levels of English. So lots of people have different abilities. So I try to keep in mind people's different abilities during the class. Okay, so now I will share the screen and I will show you the introduction document. So this document is the most important document for me. It's the foundation, and I see for Zoom. So yeah, I hope there's no big problem with Zoom. Sometimes we have a little difficulty with the connection with Zoom. So this document for me is the most important document. It's the introduction document, and I'll just make my screen a little bit bigger because yeah, sometimes here's the typical problem that we have with Zoom. So I'll just try. This is the document, you can see, and now it's closed again. Yeah, so this is the introduction document, and everybody who has attended my classes is familiar with this document. And you can see all the topics. So for me, there are 3 sections. The first section is the use of English. The second section are the different tenses, and the third section you can see is grammar. So for me, all English is on this page. This page is the base. It's very important, and at the beginning it's necessary to explain the technical vocabulary and the technical expressions, because during the class I mention a lot the vocabulary, the technical vocabulary. So it's very important at the beginning you are familiar with the concepts in English. Okay, so the first point is in use of English. And English around the world, we have different accents. So in Ireland, we have a particular accent. We have different accents in different parts of Ireland, in the south of Ireland, in Cork, in Dublin. So this is extremely difficult for you to understand and to catch the significance, number 1. And number 2, we have more countries like the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the United Kingdom. They have very, very different 3 particular accent issues. For example, the U is possibly very strong in Ireland, or for me, sometimes we say Dublin, butter, bus, but phonetically in the book it should be butter, Dublin, bus. So just be a little careful with the U and the TH for me and in Ireland. The phonetics for TH is this, that, these, those, but sometimes for me and sometimes in Dublin it's like a D, this, that, these and those. So just be a little bit conscious of that. And also the O is very strong. So sometimes now instead of, so the O can be very strong in Ireland as well, and the OU. Okay. The next area of phrasal verbs. So some of you are familiar with phrasal verbs, and that's fantastic. You need to continue practicing, continue identifying phrasal verbs, but some of you are not familiar with phrasal verbs. So the concept of the phrasal verb in English is a verb, eat, drink, go, look, verb, plus the preposition. And the preposition is a little word like up, down, over, across, in. Preposition plus phrase plus verb is a phrasal verb, and we have thousands and thousands of phrasal verbs. We use phrasal verbs all the time, every moment, in informal situations, formal situations, family, social, business. They're very, very small, and they change the meaning to English. So this is a big area and a big idioms are like expressions or phrases, and they're very common again in conversation, in social situations, professional situations. Idioms, we have thousands again of idioms, and they're very important, and they're a big area for you to identify and to study. They will help you understand fluent speakers and native speakers a lot, because in social situations we use them very frequently. Conversation is a big part. So when you are learning a language, for example, I studied French and I studied Spanish a little, but I have experience speaking Spanish in Spain. But French, I have no experience speaking French. So for me, I need to practice conversation in French if I want to improve. And this is the same for you. If you want to improve English, you need to try to practice your conversation, and you need to try to find somebody who can help and who can correct you a little. And of course, today on the internet, it's definitely very possible. You have lots of options, and sometimes during this class, people can participate for speaking, and I can give advice, give suggestions. And again, pronunciation is a big part of English, and lots of people have a big wish and a big desire to practice pronunciation and improve pronunciation. And sometimes English is not phonetic, so some word in English and it has a completely different sound compared to what it. During the class, I try to identify all the time the important pronunciation points. Okay. The next area are the tenses. So when you speak in English, you need to be aware of the time. Do you speak in the present? Do you speak in the past? Do you speak in the future? Do you speak in the hypothetical? Do you speak in the for a wish? So the tenses and the times are very important in every language, and English is the same. You need at the beginning to be very familiar with the concepts and the ideas of the tenses in English, and basically we have a few. So the simple, we have the present simple, which is one action you do in the present regularly. I eat, I drink, I go, present simple. The past simple is one action that's completed and finished in the past, but the big difficulty is we have a lot of irregular verbs in the past, and this is extremely difficult. Irregular verbs are hard. You need to learn, you need to remember irregular verbs in the past simple. We have a lot, okay? The regular structure is ed. For example, look in the present, looked in the past. But irregular, we have a lot. Eat, ate, go, went. So that's a big part of the past simple. The future simple is one action that you will do in the future. And there's two general possibilities to create the future simple. I will, going to eat, you are going to speak, you are going to meet. That's the future simple, present simple, and past simple. The next idea is the present, and the structure is the subject, I, you, he, she, auxiliary verb to be, and the gerund of the verb. The gerund of the verb is ing. I am eating, I am drinking, I am going is the present continuous, and the past continuous is almost the same, except the verb to be is in the past. I was eating, I was drinking, I was going, and the future continuous has a similar idea. I will be eating, I will be drinking, I will be going. That's the continuous, the simple, and the next idea is the perfect. We have the present perfect and we have the past perfect, which are extremely common, and we have a future perfect. But the present perfect is typically an action in the past. It's completed, but the action and the result is relevant. The consequences are relevant and related to now. The structure is the subject, the extra auxiliary verb have, and the participle of the verb. And remember, the participle is the third column. In school, you learn go, went, gone. The third column is the participle, and we use the participle for the perfect. One example for the present perfect, I have eaten my breakfast this morning. It's finished, it's completed, but it is related and relevant to now, because at this moment I am not hungry, because the breakfast is continuing to work for me. So that's the little concept of the present perfect. In the United States, it's not so frequent. Apparently, it's not so common in the United States. It's more typical, the past simple. So that's just a curiosity. Also, the past perfect is the period in time before another action in the past simple. And it's similar to the present perfect, except the verb extra have is in the past. I had eaten my breakfast before my friend contacted me. So that's the difference between the present perfect and the past perfect. The past perfect is the period in time in the past, usually before another action in the past simple. Okay. The future perfect is possible. I will have met my friend before I will have my breakfast. So it's usually connected with two actions. And those three, simple, continuous, and perfect, are probably the most common and the most typical, and they are in every part of English. They are so important and they're so frequent. They're used all the time. The next two ideas are very important also. The concept of the conditional. So in English, the conditional is related to if and the different time. So if I continue to speak, I will be tired. If I continue to go, I will have no energy. So it depends on the time. And if it rains today, I will not go to the city centre. This is very, very heavy, and the theory is a little depressing and a little difficult because we have a lot of rules in the book for the conditions, but in reality it's a little less strict and a little more fluid in conversation. Okay, so that's the conditional and mixed conditional. There are some rules, but it's a big area and a little tricky. Okay. Also the active and the passive. So the concept of the active is the ordinary structure. Active is the subject, verb, and the object. I drink the milk. That's the active. And to create the passive, we change the position of the subject and the object. We also introduce an extra verb to be, and we use the participle of the original verb. So I drink the milk changes to the milk is drunk by me. So that's the idea and the construction of the active and the passive, and it is very important and it's frequent and it's impressive and it's a little advanced and it's very, very good. Also, we have the idea and the term infinitive. So the infinitive basically is the base of the verb, and usually it's to go, to eat, to drink, to have. This is called the infinitive, and during the class I mention and I refer to the infinitive a lot. So it's important you are familiar with the idea of the infinitive. It is the base, it is the base form of the verb, usually with to. Okay, so that is important, and they are the most important concepts for the tenses in English. Okay, so the next section we have general grammar concepts, and I think terms because during the class I mention a lot noun, adjective, preposition, modal verb, article, adverb. So you need to be very sure at the beginning with the explanation and with the concept. So a noun is basically a person, a place, or a thing. So we have a lot of nouns, of course: jacket, shirt, table, football, drink. So noun, and every noun you need an article. We have two articles in English. We have the indefinite article and the definite article. So it's a little technical, but basically the indefinite article is a or a, and the pronunciation is possible the two, a house or a house, no problem with the pronunciation. And the definite article is the house, the car, the bicycle. So that's the difference between indefinite and definite article in relation to the noun. Every noun needs an article. We have one exception and one rule: when the noun begins with a vowel, a, e, I, o, u. The general rule is the article is an. Okay, apple, an apple. So it's very important in relation to the noun that begins with the vowel. Okay, the majority of nouns you have an adjective, and the position of the adjective is before the noun, and the function of the adjective is to describe the noun. Okay, so the house, the big house, the car, the fast car. So the adjective is before the noun, and this is important because in Spanish and in Portuguese the position of the adjective is after, so this is particularly important for English. Okay, the idea of countable and uncountable nouns are very important. So is it possible to count the noun? Bottle, table, chair, light, 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights. So yes, they are possible to count, but we have some nouns in English that are not possible to count. Air, water, chocolate, time, it's not possible to count because we count minutes, glasses, liters. So there's a different concept between countable and uncountable, and this is important in relation to how much and how many. Okay, so really this concept is important in relation to how much and how many. How much is related to uncountable, how much chocolate, how much water, how much air, how much time, and many is connected to countable, how many pens, how many days, how many people, how many weeks. Okay, so that's the little difference. With the adjectives, we continue with the concept of comparative and superlative. So adjective, this movie is good, but this movie is better than this movie, but this movie is the best. So the idea of the comparative is when you compare two nouns and you want to say one is better or one is not better, it is worse. So good, better, best, good or bad, worse, worst. That's one example. But the regular rule is one syllable. We normally add er, and for the superlative we add est. So big, bigger, biggest. But if it is more than one syllable, for example, interesting, we normally just say more interesting and most interesting. So this area is called the comparative and the superlative, and it is important for sure. And you will see this very, very frequently in English. And particularly, you have to remember the comparative is than, T-H-A-N, and not that. Okay, so happier than, bigger than, smaller than, not that with a T. So you need to forget that in this context. The adverb, so the function of the adverb is connected to the verb. So the function of the adverb is to describe the verb. In English, we have a lot of verbs: to eat, to drink, to talk, and the adverb describes the verb. And typically the adverb has ly at the end: drink quickly, talk slowly. Okay, so the function of the adverb is to describe the verb, and usually it's after the verb. Okay, modal verbs, we have a lot of particular specific verbs called modal verbs, and the first one is can. Can is related to ability and permission. I can run a marathon. I can play the piano. I can contact my friend. It's my ability. And also permission. I can enter the room. I can enter the building. It's my permission and ability. So can is very important and very, very frequent. Could, may, and might are for possibilities. I could go to the shop. I may go to the city. I might watch the movie. It's an option. It's a possibility. It's not definite. It's an option. The only difference is may and might are probably a little more formal and a little more polite. Okay, so may and might are a little more polite compared to could, but in reality, there's really very, very little difference between the three. Okay, shall is similar to will, and it's very formal and a little older, but it is frequent. We shall go to the shop. We will go to the shop. Shall we watch the movie? Will we watch the movie? So it's very important and it's frequent. Okay, the next one is should. This is a modal verb, and should is typical in the situation for recommendation and advice. So you should watch this movie. You should read this book is my advice and my recommendation. The next verb has the same significance, but the pronunciation is a little different. So the G is silent, and the pronunciation is you ought to watch this movie. You ought to read this book. It has the same significance. You should. Okay, and finally, must is obligation. So you have no choice. You have no option. You must collect the children. You must do the exercise. You must eat well. So it's modal verb for obligation, and the pronunciation for you is possibly very, very strong. Sometimes in Ireland, must, but phonetically it's a must. Okay, and it has the same significance as have to. So you have to collect the children, you have to do the exercise. Must and have to are the same with significance, but obviously different in the spelling. The big rule and the most important rule for the modal verbs is the next verb. Okay, so can, go, might, eat, should, look. So the rule, it's necessary to eliminate to, because normally we use to go, to eat, to drink, but after a modal, it's necessary to eliminate to, and this is the big error and the big typical confusion. So the typical structure is you must go, you might have, you could look, and the common error is you might to look, you might error with that for sure. Okay, so they are the modal verbs. Of course, the next section is prepositions. So we have prepositions that are small, very small, but they can change the significance and they can change the importance and the meaning of the sentence completely. Okay, we have maybe 150 prepositions in English. They are basically related to movement, direction, and position. Okay, so prepositions are very flexible. For example, speak, in general, I speak, but direction, I speak to you. Look, again, I look in general, but direction, I look at you. So prepositions are very important for direction. For movement, I go across the road. Okay, I go to Italy. And also for position. So the apple is in my hand, the apple is under my hand, over my hand, beside my hand, in front of my hand. So we have a lot of prepositions for position, for movement and direction. And also in phrasal verbs, we use prepositions every moment in phrasal verbs to combine with the verb. And usually in the phrasal verb, there's a connection with emotion. For example, up is positive, creation and happy. Down is depressing, sad and destruction. So they are very small words, but they're extremely important to change the significance and to understand English. The next section is very interesting, and it's a common confusion, and I'll just try to make this a bit smaller so it closes the space you can see in the line. So the first one is the possessive adjective. For example, my apple, your apple, his apple, her apple. So possession, my apple, your apple, adjective. Okay. The second possibility is the possessive pronoun. The apple is mine, the apple is yours, the apple is his, the apple is hers. And that is very important, particularly in relation to him, her, he, she. And the third possibility is the object pronoun. So you give the apple to me, give the apple to him, give the apple to her. So that area, those three areas are very important and very commonly confused. So you need to be a little bit careful, and you need to be definitely clear with the difference in those three areas: possessive adjective, possessive pronoun, and object pronoun. Okay. And I think that's sufficient for today, just for the introduction. Okay, the final area is the suffix and E. Suffix is typical verb: realize, monetize. ELE is typical adjective: manageable, approachable, a little advanced. And the ly is the adverb: quickly, slowly, happily. So very important prefixes and suffixes, and it's a big recommendation to be aware of the significance of the suffix and the prefix. Good. So writing is a completely different skill, and grammar is one area. You need to study grammar. You need to read. You need to read a lot of English to improve. Books, magazines, newspapers. You need to read, and speaking, listening, writing, and grammar. So there's a lot of 4 or 5 areas that are really important and equal in terms of importance, and writing is one area that's very important. Exams are very popular, so obviously the Cambridge exams, the B2 and the C1 are extremely common and extremely popular, and I can help with preparation for the exams. For example, yesterday we had a specific webinar yesterday for the advanced at 4 o'clock. Today, we have a specific webinar for business English. So at 4 o'clock in Ireland, it's a business webinar. We focus on vocabulary for business and maybe listening in relation to business and debate for business at 4 o'clock. If you want to join, just contact me. And on Saturday, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we have a specific webinar for the first certificate for level B2. So tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we have a specific webinar for the first certificate for B2. And you can contact me if you want to register. There's a small fee of €2.90 to attend the specific webinars. And on Wednesdays, we focus on the IELTS exam. So there's very good webinars available. It's not difficult, in my opinion, but just to practice your listening, and I hope you try to catch the vocabulary. After the video, I will explain the vocabulary. So here, you can see the vocabulary in my page. This is the text, the transcript. And after the first, I will show you the script and I will explain the interesting vocabulary. It's not difficult, but just to practice your listening for today. Okay, so I see we have a chat here as well. And just to check the chat. Friends, exactly. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to play the video first and then you can try. I hope the volume is okay. I will increase the volume and I'll press play and hopefully you can hear everything, okay? So hopefully we've no problem with the internet. It's a big possibility.
Sorry,
yeah.
Our subway broke down.
Okay, I'll start again.
That's a lie. You went to the game. I can see Joey's hand. For the love of God, take it off! You guys, come on. It doesn't matter why we're late. We're all here now. Please let us in so we can have some of your... That's about a fax machine that did that. Who gets this? Water balloon! What are we gonna do? I'm starving. I just remembered. We do have something to eat. Monica put something in our oven this morning. Oh, yeah. You touched that and you will be sorry. Guys, I listened to her. The vein is bigger than I've ever seen it. Oh my God, Brussels sprouts. That's worse than no food. Ha ha, all you got was Monica's stinky Brussels sprouts. Stinky? Please let me stay on this side of the door. Oh, I know. I still have my old key. We can just unlock the door. I don't know if that's such a good idea. They clearly don't want to be with us. You know what? I don't want to be with them either, but it's Thanksgiving and we should not want to be together.
Okay, so that is one example of 1 minute. Not word for word, it's not difficult. So the vocabulary is not difficult. You will see the vocabulary is very clear and very simple, but the problem is the velocity. They speak very, very quick. Number one, velocity is difficult. And number two, the context is different. So they make a lot of jokes in relation to private or particular jokes. So for example, Joey said water balloon. So if you're not familiar with the series, you don't understand the joke. So the context is difficult and the velocity of speaking is very difficult. So I'll just show you the script, and here you can see the vocabulary word for word, and I'll just make it bigger as well because you can see. Okay, so first, also this is the link. So if you want to check if you want to check the web page for the specific vocabulary for the script, this is the web page and it's really, really good. And first he says our subway broke down. So to break down is typical for the car. It's typical for the possible physical breakdown. So breakdown is flexible. And here it's typical when the machine stops working or the car breaks down, it stops. And here the subway broke down. Okay, so it's like to have a problem in functioning. That's a lie. So remember, there is two verbs, one verb with two significances. To lie is related to, in Espanol, mentir, to not tell the truth. And the second verb is position. Lie in the bed, lie on the floor, the building lies at the end of the street. So there's two significances for the verb to lie. And this is a substantivo or a noun, a lie. So it's not the truth, okay? So that's a lie. You went to the game. I can see Joey's hands. And remember, can is a modal. And the next verb after the modal, we eliminate to. So normally it's to see, but we eliminate to. And this is possession. Okay, Brian's hand, Joey's hand. Okay. Then Ross says, for the love of God. And that's a typical expression. It's like, you can also say, for God's sake. And that means, like, please, really, I want you to stop. For the love of God, stop playing the piano. Stop eating the chocolate. So, for God's sake is similar to the love of God. And this is a very typical expression. Sake is like the purpose. Okay, so that's an interesting expression, very common. And they continue, so nothing difficult. Again, please let us in has the significance to permit. Permit us to enter. Let us in is extremely typical, but maybe difficult to catch. And Joey said, I had a dream once about a fax machine that did that when the turkey came under the table. So a little joke and maybe difficult to understand. Here they said gonna, and remember, of course, it's necessary going to. So gonna is very, very informal. And of course, it depends on the context. So if you are texting with your friend, it's possible to say gonna. Want. Have to be careful, because if you're talking to a manager or you're talking to a customer, it's a little unprofessional. So just be very, very careful with that. And again, the same here. And then Joey said, I have not seen this particular series. So that's a particular joke, and it's probably difficult to understand. Starving is very good. So starving is when you're very, very hungry. You are starving. There is a verb to starve, and the noun is starvation. Okay, and starving is the adjective, and the significance is very, very hungry. So really good vocabulary, and maybe a little advanced. Everything I think is fine. You will be sorry. So you touch that and you will be sorry. That's a very typical expression in conversation. If it's conditional, if you do this, you will regret it. You will be sorry. So it's a typical expression. You will be sorry is be careful. Okay, you will have the consequences and you will regret. The next one, Chandler says, guys, I would listen to her. Okay, so there's two possibilities. Had with the contraction, it's possible had, or it's possible would. And in this case, it's I would listen to her in the hypothetical, like the conditional. The vein is bigger than I've ever seen. So again, this is probably a private or a particular joke, because I think the vein is related to the body. You have the blood and you have the veins. Okay, and here we see the vein. So Chandler is joking, saying that the vein, she is very angry, and the vein is very, very big. Okay, so the vein is bigger than, that's the comparative. You remember big. So the vein is big, but this vein is bigger than this one. So that's just an example of the comparative and the superlative in the introduction. Okay. He also says, I have ever seen it. So this is the present perfect because it started in the past. He has seen it before, but it's related to the present because he continues to see a new one. A little example of the present perfect. Okay. Brussels sprouts are the particular vegetable. Okay, so Brussels sprouts would be sprouts is the vegetable, typical, very controversial because some people love them and some people hate them. Okay, so Brussels sprouts are typical at Christmas, and there is a verb in English to sprout, and it's a very good verb to sprout. It's like to grow, very similar to grow for the vegetables. So in the winter, the vegetable is almost dead, but after winter it starts to sprout. But we use this as a metaphor for teenagers or children. So when you're 10 or 11, you're very small, but when you're 13, you're 14, you begin to sprout. So it's very advanced vocabulary, but it is flexible and it is possible. Here we have another example of the comparative. So bad, but worse than. Okay, and you need to be clear because a lot of people confuse the comparative and the superlative in this case, and you need to be very, very clear. So bad is the adjective. This movie is bad, but this movie is worse than this movie, and this movie is the worst. So especially you need to be clear with the two, bad, worse than, and the worst. So you really, really need to be very, very precise and very accurate with worse and worst. So stink is the bad smell. Okay, so what is the stink? What is the bad smell? And stinky is the adjective. So for example, cheese is very stinky. And it's possible the verb as well, to stink the room, to stink the fridge. So it's a verb and it is a noun and it is an adjective as well. Okay, so really good vocabulary, and it means to smell, a bad smell. Okay, and I think that's really the most difficult. Then Rachel says we can is ability, modal verb. Unlock is the verb. Okay, so we have two verbs, to lock and to unlock is the negative. So if you enter the building, if you enter the room, you unlock the door, and if you leave the room, you lock the door. So the difference between the affirmative and the negative, to lock and to unlock. And that's it. So now I will play it again and you can follow the script. Remember, it's not too difficult, but it's practice your listening. But remember, sorry, I'm going to bring it back to the start. So in my opinion, the problem is the velocity. They speak very, very fast, and that is the difficulty. So the problem is the velocity and the context. Okay.
That's a lie.
Okay, I'll play again. Sorry.
Guys, we're sorry. Our subway broke down. That's a lie. You went to the game. I can see Joey's hand. For the love of God, take it off. You guys, come on. It doesn't matter why we're late. We're all here now. Please let us in so we can have some more delicious turkey.
I had a dream once about a fax machine that did that.
That's all the turkey you're gonna get.
How are we going to decide who gets this? Water balloon!
What are we gonna do? I'm starving. I just remembered. We do have something to eat. Monica put something in our oven this morning. Oh, yeah. Hey, you touched that and you will be sorry.
Guys, I listened to her. The vein is bigger than I've ever seen it.
Oh my God, it's Brussels sprouts.
That's worse than no food.
Ha ha, all you got was Monica's stinky Brussels sprouts. Stinky?
Please let me stay on this side of the door.
Oh, I know. I still have my old key. We can just unlock the door. I don't know if that's such a good idea. They clearly don't want to be with us. You know?
Okay, so good. I think the explanation helps, and I think the vocabulary is good. The next verb, again, normally it's infinitive, to go, to stay, to eat, but after let, the typical rule, we eliminate to after let. So let me have, let me go, let me drink is correct. The error, let me to have, let me to drink. So after let, it's necessary to remove to. Okay, and really good. So that's just good practice. And again, the big difficulty in that clip, the big difficulty is the velocity. They speak very, very fast. They speak very, very friendly, and I think that's the challenge. But the vocabulary we did a little at an article. Okay, so I will put the vocabulary in the video at the bottom of the comments of the Facebook page. so you will see everything. And now I just want to look a little at some vocabulary from an article. So if you are a music fan, if you are a lover of music, you might know this person. So he's a rock genius, Lee Mavers. I don't know who he is, but this is a story today in the BBC about the mystery of lost. Will read for pronunciation, and after I will return to analyze the vocabulary and the expressions. Okay, so first, just over released their sole LP, a masterpiece that shaped guitar music. So pronunciation, but its brilliant frontman has been elusive ever since, writes Sean Curran. Okay, and read a little bit more. So Lee Mavers is the frontman, songwriter, and creative force of the La's, a British band from the northern city of Liverpool. The La's only made one album, enjoyed just one hit single, and have not released a note of new music since 1990. Okay, yet the band's legacy and place in rock history, so you need to be clear with the preposition and history, supersedes their slim output. Okay, that single, There She Goes, remains as perfect a slice of guitar pop as anything since their Liverpool forebears, the Beatles, and is the crown jewel in a treasured canon that has become a touchstone for generations of bands. So a little more difficult. We continue, and it's a little more difficult. The LA's helped to usher in really good vocabulary the 90s Britpop era in British guitar music, led by the likes of Oasis and Blur. Noel Gallagher once declared that Oasis want to finish what the La's started. Okay, while their influence has stretched beyond really good vocabulary, our influence has stretched beyond that to bands from the Libertines to Arctic Monkeys, the Fontaines DC. It's like the Velvet Underground, says former La's guitarist Barry Sutton. Maybe not everyone knows about the La's, but everyone who did went out and formed a band or was touched by the music in a really deep way. Okay, so that's definitely a sufficient quantity of English and some interesting expressions. So the first part, the verb is to release. So very important. First, you need to be careful because we have similar verbs in English. We have the verb to realize, which is completely different. So the verb to realize is like darse cuenta in Espanol, and in the United States it's the S, but in the United Kingdom it's the Z. Okay, and I think there's a little delay. So in the United Kingdom it's Z, but in the United States it's S, and the significance is like darse cuenta in Spanish. Because in Espanol es posible para decir realizar, which is como hacer. So it's a little false, friend. It's a little different because in Spanish there is a verb realizar, which has the translation as to make. So you need to be careful. But this verb is to release. So it's completely different. And the significance is to liberate. It's typical in prisoners when people are captured. You need to release the prisoner or the animal. The animal is in the cage and you want to release the animal. Okay, so it's like to liberate, but also it's typical in the context of movies, typical in the context of music. So I make music, I make a song, and I am finished, and I release the song. So the significance is to send the song to a lot of people. The same with the movies. You finish the movie, you make the movie, you finish the movie, and you release the movie. You show and you send the movie to everybody. Okay. It's possible also a noun for relaxation. So you work Monday to Friday, and at the weekend you need a release of stress. So you need to swim, you need to run, you need a release is possible, a noun. Okay, so it's flexible. It's used in different contexts, and it's very important. So here it's in relation to music, and it's the past. Okay, soul is only, and remember this is the possessive adjective, my CD, your CD, their CD, and LP is a type of CD. So it's a type of disc. I think the original music was LP, and then it transformed to CD. So soul is only, so it's similar to Latin. So a masterpiece is something incredible, something fantastic. It's typical in art. Picasso created a lot of masterpieces that shaped guitar, pronunciation, guitar music. But its is possession. Again, possession adjective. My front man, the band, because it's the band, it's possession. And a front man is a name for the musician that's most prominent. Okay, front man or front woman. And there's another possibility, lead singer. It's very typical as well. The lead singer, the front man, or the front woman. So good vocabulary specific for music. That's the front man, the front woman, or the lead singer. Has been, so this is the present perfect because it started in the past and it continues in the present. And Spanish and Latin, it means that it's not possible to catch, it's not possible to find the person. He has been elusive ever since. So that's a very, since that moment, ever since has a significance always since that moment. And remember the difference between since and from. Since is usually one moment in the past, since 8 o'clock, but from is usually two, from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, but since 8 o'clock. And typically the present perfect is used with since. So there's a small difference between since and from. And in the first paragraph, again, frontman, good vocabulary. Songwriter is the person. So normally the suffix er is representation of a person. Singer, but sometimes it's irregular because we have er, we have or, we have icn, we have ist. These are typical suffixes for a person. For example, tourist, cyclist, scientist, musician, politician, magician. So very important suffixes to represent the person. Director and dancer. So just, it's so important that you identify the suffixes and the importance of the suffixes to indicate the form of the word. Okay. A hit. So remember, we explained this last week. The verb is to hit. I hit my arm, I hit my head. But in relation to baseball, you hit the ball. In football, you hit the ball. But in relation to music, a hit is a big success. So you create the music and it has a big impact. It's a big impact. It's a big hit. Okay, so something successful is a big hit, and the single is one single. You have the album with 10 singles, 20 singles, and the single is one song. Successful song. Again, released, haven't released. This is the present perfect and it's connected with since. So since 1990, they have not released. So it started in the past and it continues. The present perfect. Okay, yet. So yet is more typical at the end of the sentence in the negative. I have not met my friend yet. So typical the present perfect in the negative. Yet is at the end. Como todavía in Espanol. I have not had my dinner yet until this moment. But yet is possible at the start of the sentence with a completely different significance. And the significance at the start of the sentence is however. I like chocolate, yet I don't eat a lot. So that significance is however. So there's a completely different significance and it's very, very important. Okay. Here it's the possession, the legacy of the band's legacy. The difference between history and story is very important and it's very commonly confused. So in school, you study history in school, but from the weekend, you have a story to tell. Okay, I have a story I want to tell you. from my weekend. But Ireland has a big history, England has a big history, Europe has a big history, so it's the subject in school. So there's definitely a difference. Of course they are connected, but the context and the use is very distinguishable. It's very different and very distinct. Reputation goes before you. People are aware, people understand your reputation before they meet you. Okay, and to supersede is similar, but it means it's more important. Okay, then they're slim, so their place in history because of the one hit, that significance is more important than the output. And output is very important vocabulary. It's like production. So the verb is to put and out. So imagine the factory, imagine the person, and you produce. So you put out the product, you put out the music. So the noun is the output. And it's very typical in economics for the country. Ireland's output is very high. So all the products and services that Ireland give or that produce is the output. So it's flexible and it's very important. It's typical in electricity as well, the output of electricity. So slim, again, there is the possessive adjective. My output, your output, his output, her output, their output. Slim is very, very good vocabulary. Slim is the same as thin. In Espanol, delgado. And it's more adaptable and flexible because you can say slim chances, and that means very more flexible, and it's very, very good for opportunity. Slim chances and slim output means very small production. Okay, remains is very similar to stay and to keep. Remember, remain, stay, and keep are very similar. So here it's possible stays as a perfect, but not really. People understand you, but remains is continues to be. Okay, you remain in Ireland. The pandemic remains this year. So to remain is very similar to stay, and just be a little bit careful. But a slice, again, here is the noun, and we have the article, but a slice is important vocabulary, of course, for a pizza. It's very typical, a slice of pizza, and it is a verb to slice. Okay, so if you want to cut the cake and you want to slice the cake, and it's possible to noun a slice. Okay, cut, but very important. Forbears, verb to bear. So of course this is advanced vocabulary, but the verb is to bear, and it means to carry. So it's typical with pregnancy, and the woman is bearing a child, so she is carrying a child. Okay, so the significance is to carry, and you can say child bearing, and it means you are carrying the child. But it also means to tolerate. It's the same significance. I cannot tolerate the weather, I cannot bear the weather. So it's the same significance of carry. So supportar, tolerar. I can't tolerate, I can't support, I can't stand is typical as well. So all synonyms: to bear, to tolerate, and to carry. And here for is typical. It's related to before. So it's related to before, and it's possible to say forefathers. So our forefathers are the grandparents, the grandfathers, the great grandfathers, the people who lived before us are the forefathers. Okay, so forebears is very, very proficient vocabulary, and it means the success, they carry the reputation of Liverpool. It's difficult, very, very difficult. Difficult, the jewel, which is related to jewelry. So you like jewelry, is the ring, the necklace, the jewelry. But the jewel is the one object, like the diamond. The diamond is the jewel, okay? And it's very typical to say the crown jewel, which is in England, in London, in the Tower of London, they have the treasure and the jewels that belong to the Queen or belong to the country. So the crown jewels are the most important asset, and it's a metaphor because you can use this in your life. You can say, well, you can use it for lots of situations, but crown jewels are the most important things, and jewelry is the pronunciation and the jewel is the noun. Okay, so the crown jewel is an expression, the most important treasure, the most important object, and again, treasure is the noun, and treasured with the D is the adjective. Canon is like collection. It's very old English, very formal. It's like a collection, a canon of literature. Has become, so the verb is to become. Remember, become, became, become, and here it's the present perfect. So it started in the past and it is very, very advanced vocabulary, and the significance is important, maybe the most important feature, the most important characteristic. So it's a touchstone for generations. The next generation look and focus on this music because it was the representation, it was the most successful, and it's the top. So a touchstone is very advanced vocabulary, but very, very good. The next verb I like, so this is my favorite expression in the text. The lads helped to usher in the 90s Britpop era. So definitely this is my favorite sentence, because you go to the cinema and the man or the woman who takes your ticket and the man or the woman who shows you your seat, this man or woman is the usher. Okay, so the verb to usher you to your seat is to accompany you to your seat, to show you to your seat. Very advanced, very good English. And to usher in is like to accompany or to introduce, similar to introduce, and it is concept. Época in Espanol, the time or the period of 90s Britpop. It's a very famous name, Britpop. And the lads helped to introduce society to this concept and to this era. Okay. Led by, again, very, very important. It's related to lead, like liderar. And it's typical, for example, eating a lot of chocolate leads to bad health, like the consequences lead to, and the past is led to. But you can say led by is for a person. So the team is led by the captain. So it's typical for the person. And here the era was led by the likes of. It's like examples such as Oasis and Blur. And the last word is to stretch beyond. Okay, so the verb to stretch is typical with muscles. If you're doing exercise, you want to stretch your arm, stretch your legs, so to stretch is possible. But it's a metaphor in relation to money. So to make a euro stretch is to maximize the ability of €1. Okay, so it's very, I think there's a shop, Pound Stretcher. So with £1, with €1, you can buy a lot of things. So you can stretch the capability, you can stretch your possibilities to buy. Okay, and here, so stretch is like reach, moved, and very, very important, very native, and a little advanced, but very, very good. So that's a good analysis today. Remember, we looked at the introduction for the grammar. We moved to the listening practice, which is not too difficult, just the velocity was very quick. And we also checked an article for grammar. Remember, today at 4 o'clock, we have a specific webinar today at 4 o'clock in relation to business English. So today at 4 o'clock, I have no picture here because I forgot my picture. But at 4 o'clock today, we have a webinar for business English. If you want to join, if you want to participate in the webinar today, contact me, send me a message. There's a small fee of €2.90, which is very, very cheap. And we will focus on vocabulary from business, a video from business, and debate and conversation in relation to business. So that is today at 4 o'clock, and you are welcome to join. Everybody's welcome to join. It is a webinar and it will be good, I hope. Yesterday we had the advanced and tomorrow we have the first certificate. So remember, if you for me, it's my job. Okay, at the moment it's my job, it's my opportunity to continue to work and to reconstruct after the crazy year. So I'm hoping I can continue this way, and it's good for me to meet new people and to know new people for the future. And if you would like to support me or would like to donate to help me, it's possible with a small quantity, just a little tip, maybe €1, a very small quantity. You can transfer by Bizum in Spain, the application. In Ireland we have the application Revolut, so if you want to donate a very small tip or a small quantity by Revolut, it will help me a lot. Or you can directly transfer by bank, and the details for the IBAN and the BIC are here, and you can directly transfer €1 or a small donation. And finally, there is a website on PayPal, paypal.me/support Brian King, or a little code. Now we can practice some speaking a little if people want to join the meeting. I know we have 3 people, but if you want to join the meeting, this is the code on Zoom, and if anybody in the meeting wants to participate, just put a message in the chat or to raise your hand and you can ask a question or we can have a little conversation. So you're welcome to join or you're welcome to participate. So just put a message in the chat, and if not, we will finish the class. And that was very good today. A lot of material, a lot of content, and yes, so that's the plan. So enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great Friday and enjoy the weekend. Tomorrow morning at 11:15 in Ireland we will have another class, and we continue with the same process and the same structure. So thank you very much everybody. Have a great day and talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Okay.